The unmistakable sizzle of eggs hitting a hot pan is one of the most familiar sounds on Earth. Every day, billions of breakfasts begin exactly this way. But pause for a moment. What lies before you is far more than a simple meal. Inside this fragile shell is one of nature's most remarkable biological masterpieces. A perfectly engineered package refined through hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Packed with complete protein, essential vitamins, and the nutrients needed to create new life, the egg has nourished humanity for countless generations. Today, humans consume more than 1.6 trillion eggs every year. But the real question is this: when did our ancestors first begin eating eggs? And how did this humble food become part of a story stretching back over 200,000 years of human history? Long before farms, villages, or even stone houses existed, the search for eggs was driven by pure instinct. Our closest living relatives offer an important clue. Wild chimpanzees have been observed climbing, towering trees, raiding bird nests, and eagerly eating both eggs and chicks whenever the opportunity arises. For them, a nest is more than a meal. It is a rare treasure packed with concentrated nutrition. Many anthropologists believe our earliest ancestors inherited the same opportunistic behavior millions of years ago. As changing climates transformed the forests of East Africa into open savannas between 4 and 6 million years ago, early hominins began spending more time on the ground. There, a new opportunity appeared. Large birds such as ostriches, guinea fowl, and bustards often built exposed nests directly on the earth, making their eggs far easier to find than those hidden high in the trees. Remarkably, archaeology provides evidence that this ancient habit survived into the human lineage. At the Gran Dolina site in Spain's Sierra de Atapuerca, dating to roughly 900,000 years ago, researchers recovered fossil eggshell fragments alongside the remains of Homo antecessor. Detailed microscopic analysis identified shells belonging to shorebirds, cranes, and waterfowl, suggesting these early Europeans were collecting wild bird eggs long before agriculture existed. These discoveries reveal that eggs were not merely an occasional snack. They had already become a valuable and reliable source of nutrition in prehistoric life. Now, imagine discovering an egg nearly 24 times larger than the one sitting in your refrigerator. An ostrich egg can weigh around 1.4 kilograms, providing enough nutrition to feed several people. But for prehistoric humans, its value extended far beyond food. Thick, durable shells became tools, containers, and eventually works of art. At South Africa's Deep Kloof rock shelter, archaeologists uncovered 60,000-year-old ostrich eggshells carefully engraved with geometric patterns and pierced with small openings, suggesting they were transformed into portable water flasks. Think about that for a moment. Long before pottery existed, people were already engineering reusable containers from nature itself. If this discovery surprises you, wait until you hear what happened in Ice Age Australia. Around 50,000 years ago, enormous flightless birds called Genyornis newtoni roamed the continent, standing over 2 meters tall and laying eggs weighing nearly 1.5 kilograms. Across more than 200 archaeological sites, scientists have recovered eggshell fragments bearing unmistakable signs of burning. The uneven charring closely matches experiments in which eggs were roasted directly over hot coals. Many researchers believe these giant eggs became an irresistible food source for the first Australians. Could repeated harvesting have pushed the species toward extinction? The debate continues, but one thing is certain. Humanity's appetite for eggs has shaped far more than our diet. It may have altered entire ecosystems. By now, you might be wondering when eggs stopped being something people hunted and became something they produced. The answer begins in the forests of Southeast Asia, where the red junglefowl, the wild ancestor of every domestic chicken alive today, laid only 10 to 15 eggs each year, almost entirely during the breeding season. That was enough for survival, but nowhere near enough to feed growing civilizations. Everything changed when humans began domesticating these birds thousands of years ago. Through selective breeding, chickens gradually evolved into remarkably productive layers, and as trade expanded along the Silk Road, they spread from Asia into the Middle East, Europe, and eventually the rest of the world. Eggs were no longer an unpredictable reward found in the wild. They became a dependable food supply. Ancient Egypt pushed this transformation even further. Massive mud brick hatcheries, known today through historical records and archaeological evidence, could incubate thousands of eggs at once. Without thermometers or electricity, skilled workers relied on experience alone. They gently pressed an egg against their closed eyelid, the most temperature-sensitive part of the human body, to judge whether the developing chick was receiving exactly the right amount of warmth. Imagine trusting your own skin instead of modern technology. It was a simple technique, yet one refined over centuries and astonishingly effective. As eggs became part of everyday life, they also found their way into culture, ritual, and even superstition. In ancient Rome, a formal banquet traditionally began with eggs and ended with fruit, giving rise to the famous expression ab ovo usque ad mala, from the egg to the apples. But here's something most people have never heard. After finishing an egg, many Romans deliberately crushed the shell with their spoon. They believed that leaving an intact shell behind could allow evil spirits to hide inside or invite bad luck into the home. Would you have done the same if you had lived 2,000 years ago? Centuries later, eggs entered an entirely different chapter of history, not through tradition, but through industry. During the 20th century, especially after the 1930s, battery cage systems transformed egg production on an unprecedented scale. At the same time, decades of selective breeding produced hens capable of laying more than 300 eggs each year, compared with barely a dozen eggs laid annually by their wild ancestors. What had once been a seasonal gift from nature became one of the most efficient food production systems ever created. Yet this remarkable success would soon give eggs an unexpected reputation. For nearly half a century, one scientific belief convinced millions of people that the humble egg might actually be harming their hearts. In 1968, one recommendation changed breakfast tables around the world. The American Heart Association advised people to limit their cholesterol intake. And because a single egg yolk contains a relatively large amount of cholesterol, eggs quickly became one of nutrition's biggest villains. Newspapers, television programs, and medical advice repeated the same message: no more than 3 eggs per week. For millions of families, the golden yolk that had nourished humanity for millennia suddenly became something to fear. But here's the question: what if the story wasn't that simple? Over the following decades, scientists conducted larger and more carefully designed studies involving hundreds of thousands of participants. The evidence gradually pointed in a different direction. For most healthy people, dietary cholesterol from eggs has only a modest effect on blood cholesterol, while saturated and trans fats play a much greater role in increasing cardiovascular risk. By 2013, major reviews published in the British Medical Journal found no clear association between moderate egg consumption and heart disease in the general population. Then, in 2015, the U.S. dietary guidelines quietly removed the long-standing limit on dietary cholesterol. After 47 years, one of the world's oldest foods had finally been cleared of a reputation it may never have deserved. The next time you crack an egg into a pan, remember, you are holding far more than breakfast. From prehistoric nest raiders to modern kitchens, this simple shell carries a story spanning hundreds of thousands of years of human history. If you enjoyed this journey through the past, let us know in the comments. What everyday food should we uncover next?